What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are breaking down the Week 10 schedule. We're going to be talking about the teams with the best and worst schedules, and also giving you guys the best streamers to help you maximize your games. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Just before we start, I want to tell you guys, if you like gambling and you want to do pick'ems on the NHL, NFL, and more, head on over to Drafters Fantasy Sports. Sign up using code FIREDUP, and when depositing a minimum of $20 using promo code FIREDUP, they will match it 100% up to $100. So 20 gets you 40, 100 gets you 200. It's a super good deal, guys, so make sure you check it out and gamble responsibly. The link is in the pinned comments. Also, I just want to give a shout out to my Twitter/X at FIREDUPFantasy. Make sure you follow me on there. I post a lot of up-to-date information, a lot of good content. And yeah, feel free to check that out too. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the teams with the most games and off nights this week. As you guys can see here, we have 6 teams on this list, and all of them have 3 off nights. The number 1 team to stream is players on the Colorado Avalanche. They have 4 games and 3 off nights, and they have the best opponent goals against average out of these teams. So really solid. Their players can put up a lot of points this week. Then we have the New York Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes. They both have 4 games and 3 off nights, a very similar opponent goals against average. Anything above 3 is pretty solid, so the players on these teams should do pretty well. Then we have the Ottawa Senators, 4 games and 3 off nights. They don't have the best opponent goals against average, so their players may underperform, but I wouldn't follow this blindly because hockey's a very luck-based sport. Things can vary week to week, but still something to consider. In terms of the Sabres, they have 4 games and 3 off nights, but they do have the worst opponent goals against average out of all NHL teams this week. So it might be a little bit tough for the Sabres players to score goals how they normally do. I wouldn't avoid picking up Sabres players on the waiver wire. I still think there's some really good options on there, but it is something to consider for sure. Then finally, we have the Anaheim Ducks. They only play 3 times this week, but all of them are off nights. So if you do have a very heavy schedule on those heavy nights, like Tuesday and Saturday, and you can't fit players into those nights, then streaming players on the Ducks could be a good option as well. Solid opponent goals against average, and I'll talk about some of the players on the Ducks in a little bit. Next up, we have the teams that play 4 games and have 2 off nights this week. If you have open roster spots on those heavy nights like Tuesday and Saturday, then the players on these teams could be fantastic options as well. They can be just as good as the players with 3 off nights. It all depends on your schedule, so make sure you check your schedule and understand which nights you can fit players into. To list this off, we have the Arizona Coyotes, the Vancouver Canucks, the Detroit Red Wings, the Calgary Flames, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. As you guys can see, the Coyotes and the Canucks have a very good opponent goals against average, so the players on those teams might do pretty good this week. Next up, we have the teams with the least amount of games. We have 4 teams this week that only play twice. It's not ideal for maximizing your games, maximizing your fantasy points. So you might want to avoid picking up players from these teams for the week, and you might have to make some tough drops as well, depending on how good the players are. This is ranked by the worst opponent goals against average to the best among these teams. We have the Montreal Canadiens, the Minnesota Wild, the Los Angeles Kings, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Next up, we have the teams with the easiest opponent record. We have 6 teams on this list. And yeah, these teams should do pretty good this week. Their goalies should do good. Their players could put up a lot of fantasy points. So to list this off, we have the Arizona Coyotes, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Colorado Avalanche, the Vancouver Canucks, and then we have a tie between the New Jersey Devils and the Edmonton Oilers. If you have a lot of players on these teams, it's probably a good thing. Next up, we have the teams with the hardest opponent records. The goalies on these teams may struggle this week, the players as well. We have the Anaheim Ducks, the Boston Bruins, the Buffalo Sabres, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Ottawa Senators. Next up, we have the teams with the highest opponent goals against average. These teams play teams that let in a lot of goals, so obviously good for fantasy. We have the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Colorado Avalanche, the Arizona Coyotes, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And finally, we have the teams that have the lowest opponent goals against average this week. These teams are playing teams that generally don't let in a lot of goals, so the players on these teams could struggle. You never know. Hockey's a very luck-based sport, but it is something to consider if you want to pick up players for this week. And if you have a lot of players on these teams, you're just going to have to suck it up and see how they play. We have the Buffalo Sabres, the Seattle Kraken, the Montreal Canadiens, the San Jose Sharks, and the Ottawa Senators. All right, finally, I just want to talk about the streamers to help you maximize your games for this week. And I talked about this in previous videos, but I want to make one thing clear. Make sure you check your schedule and see which nights you can fit players into. See if you have open spots on those heavy nights like Tuesday and Saturday. If you do, then the differences between off nights won't matter as much. So a player that has 4 games and 3 off nights isn't going to be that much of a difference than a player with 4 games and 2 off nights, okay? For example, the Arizona Coyotes have 4 games and 2 off nights this week. If you can fit them into the heavy nights in your roster, then a player like Nick Schmaltz is going to be more valuable than a guy that has 3 off nights. Like I said, all depends on your schedule, so make sure you check it out. But to get into this list, we're going to first talk about the players with 4 games and 3 off nights this week. I have them ranked generally how I view them in terms of their value in fantasy. It's going to depend on your league settings, so make sure you understand that. But a lot of these players won't be available in your leagues, but I did have to mention them. Matthew Barzal, in any serious league, he's been picked up. But if he's somehow still available, if you're in a shallow league, please take a look at him. He's shooting the puck a ton. He's putting up a lot of points. I think he's going to have a great season if he can stay healthy. We have Valeri Nichushkin, who is back. He was out with an illness, but he's returning tonight. As I'm recording this Saturday night. We have some more players: Bo Horvat, Jeff Skinner, Brock Nelson, Josh Norris, Claude Giroux, Drake Batherson, all first-line power play. I have Andrei Svechnikov on here. He is still injured, but he might return, so make sure you follow that. If he's on your waiver wire and he's back, he's a very solid fantasy player, so he's a good streaming option. We have Seth Jarvis, Martin Necas, Casey Middlestat. Again, like I told you, Buffalo Sabres don't have the best opponent goals against average, but Middlestat is on the first line power play, getting almost 19, 20 minutes a night. Very solid option, has the ability to put up a lot of points. We also have Dylan Cousins, who is back on the first line power play, I believe. That is what Daily Faceoff is saying currently, and I was looking at the ice time totals as well on NHL, and it looks like he's on that first line power play. Any Buffalo Sabres fans out there, if I'm wrong, comment below, but I think Cousins is pretty due for a bounce back. He's a very talented player. He's kind of snake bitten right now, but I am expecting him to put up some points very soon. Then we got some more players. Jake Sanderson, pretty low roster percentage for a guy that's on the first line power play. Thomas Chabot is injured once again, so it looks like Sanderson's going to stay on this first unit. I'm expecting the Sens to bounce back and their power play to get going, so take a look at Jake Sanderson, not just for the short term, but the long term. We have Devin Taves of the Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche have a great opponent goals against average this week, so they should be putting up a lot of points, and Taves could be a part of that. Next, we have Vladimir Tarasenko. He's in the top 6 now on that second line. He had a big night the other night. I'm not saying he's going to be this great player in fantasy. I'm not saying he's going to be the old Tarasenko that we once knew and loved, but if he keeps getting 16 or 17 minutes a night, then he could have some pretty good nights in fantasy. So check him out for this week because they have 4 games and 3 off nights. Jacob Chychrun, solid option, not on the first line power play, but still has the ability to put up a lot of points. Solid peripherals. We have Teuvo Teravainen. He's on the first line power play. He's in the top 6. He can put up some points. JJ Peterka, not on the first line power play, which I don't love, but he's in the top 6 right now. Alex Tuck is out 7 to 10 days, so he's going to get more ice time. He's putting up a lot of points. Always a good option. Young player that's definitely breaking out this season. Jonathan Drouin, he's currently on the first line, and he is on that first line power play as well, with Arturi Lehkonen out long term. Lehkonen's not going to be back until 6 or 8 weeks. So Drouin could be very good for the short term and for this week because the Avalanche have 4 games and 3 off nights and a great opponent goals against average. Then we got Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee. They're kind of splitting power play time, but Palmieri is still on this first line power play. Lee's picking it up lately, so good options. Ross Colton, who is now in the top 6. Ryan Johansson, his ice time has plummeted, so Colton has definitely seen improved deployment. Puts up good peripherals. He's a solid option. You have Jesperi Kotkaniemi, not getting the best ice time. This is a deeper league ad, guys. Most of the players on the rest of this list are in deeper leagues. Michael Bunting, Brady Shea, Owen Power, Zach Benson, Pierre Engvall, and Jordan Stahl. All right, next up we have some Ducks players, 3 games and 3 off nights. I didn't want to rank them among the players that have 4 games and 3 off nights because, like I told you guys, the value of a player, it depends on the open roster spots that you guys have on those heavy nights like Tuesday and Saturday. You have Frank Vetrano, Mason McTavish, who is injured. He may return this week, I'm not sure, but I thought I would include him because he definitely has the potential to put up a lot of points when he's healthy. We have Troy Terry, Leo Carlson. Hopefully Carlson doesn't, have the load management this week, but I can't predict that. Alex Killorn getting a lot of ice time. Pavel Mintyukov, still pretty solid. And then we have Ryan Strome as well. Next up, we have the streamers that have 4 games and 2 off nights this week. Like I told you guys, these players could be great options. if you have open roster spots on those heavy nights like Tuesday and Saturday. To list these off, we have Nick Schmaltz, Lucas Raymond. Fantastic options in my opinion. Raymond is still on the first line power play, even with Patrick Kane coming into the fold. We'll see how that changes, but Raymond's really been playing well lately. Nick Schmaltz getting a lot of ice time, first line power play. Always a good option, and the Coyotes have a really good opponent goals against average this week, so Nick Schmaltz could be in for a pretty good week. Patrick Kane, he just scored his first goal tonight as I'm recording this on the first line power play in the top 6. We have some Calgary Flames players, Elias Lindholm, Nazem Kadri, Rasmus Anderson. Then we got Alex Kerfoot, who's definitely a diamond in the rough. He is getting around 19 to 20 minutes of ice time per game. He's on the first line power play. And the reason for this is because obviously Barrett Hayden went down with an injury. So Kerfoot's deployment is great right now. He's putting up a lot of points. Arizona Coyotes have a great opponent goals against average. So Kerfoot could put up a lot of points this week once again. We'll see how it plays out. Then we have Sean Durzi on the first line power play. He's played well this season. Lawson Krause, great peripherals, scoring a lot of goals, getting decent deployment as of late. Then we have Jonathan Huberdeau. And yeah, I mean, Huberdeau's been so disappointing. He just had a brutal miss too, a wide open net. It was absolutely terrible, but he still has the ability to put up some points. So Huberdeau could be a good streaming option, probably in a deeper league. Igor Sharangovich, who is getting a lot of more ice time lately. He's on the first line power play. Could be a solid option, especially in a deeper league where it might be hard to find value on the waiver wire. Noah Hannafin, who's on the first line power play right now. Then we got some more players. Matias Michelli, putting up a lot of points lately. Matthew Nyes, who's on the top line. Robbie Fabry on the top line. Nick Bukestad in the top 6, putting up a lot of points, getting decent amount of ice time. Could be a great option in a deeper league. David Perron, who might be suspended. He got a match misconduct against his hit on Zub. So we'll see how that plays out. He's still on the first line power play, I believe. Doesn't have the best ice time, but if he isn't suspended, he's still a solid streaming option. Mikhail Backlund. And then we have 2 players that I don't even know how to rank. Andrei Kuzmenko and Logan Cooley. Both got moved down to the 4th line. I think the deployment could change and should change, but I can't predict it. Then we got some more options. These are definitely deeper league options, guys. Jason Zucker, Tyler Bertuzzi, Ilya Mikheyev, Joe Velino, Andrew Mangiapane, Blake Coleman, Andrew Kopp, Sam Lafferty, who is on that top line right now. He's playing pretty good. Niels Hoglander, who got moved up into the top 6, with Kuzmenko getting bumped down to the 4th line. I don't think it's going to be long term, but it is something to look at. Connor Zary, Michael Carconi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. This guy has like 13 or 14 goals despite averaging like 12 minutes of ice time per game. Very impressive. In no way is it sustainable, but he could be a good streaming option at this point if he keeps scoring goals. Then we got Michael Rasmussen, solid peripherals on the 3rd line, but you know, still solid depending on your league format and in a deeper league. And then we got Calle Yarncrow. That's all the players, guys. I may have missed some. If you're in a super deep league, there's definitely going to be players that I didn't include on these lists that you should check out. Just make sure you check out the players on the teams that I talked about in the first parts of the video. But anyways, guys, that's a video. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.